welcome to A Web of Stories. My name is Melinda, and today I'm going to do something I have not yet done on my channel, and something that I probably won't do much in the future, but I'm going to give it a try today, and I'm going to go negative. I'm going to talk about 5 writers, well, 5+1, that are on my do not read list. These are all authors whose I've read at least one of their books. There are other authors that I will not read whose books I have not read in full. I may have only sampled a chapter, but I know they are not for me, and I'm not even going to go there. But these are ones that I have read and that I just know I'm not going to be reading again in the future. So the first one I want to talk about is sort of, I don't want to call her an honorable mention so much, but my sort of addition to this list, and that is Fiona Davis. Fiona Davis is a great writer. I have read all of her books. I have recommended all of her books. I am recommending, if you haven't read her, to read a couple of her books. They're great books. But notice I said read a couple of her books. The reason she is sort of on this list is because she writes stories where they're centered around a notable building or work of architecture in New York City. There are 2 women separated by time. One is in the farther past, like the 19th century or maybe the beginning of the 20th century. And then the other one is in the more recent past, which could be the end of the 20th century or the beginning of the 21st century. Both these women have ties to this building, and there's parallel narratives, and somehow their lives become intertwined. And I have just described every single one of these books. They are all the same. They're all the same formula. And it's great formula. I enjoyed a lot of these. I mean, there's 6 books. I probably really enjoyed 4 of them. By the 5th one, I was starting to say, something's not sitting right here. And by the 6th one, I realized this was the 6th time I've read the exact same book. The thing is, Fiona Davis is a great writer. I really like her. She also went to my alma mater, I should say. Or I went to hers because she was there first. But I'm not reading any more of these books. I've read them all already, multiple times. Now, if she were to write a book that turns that formula on its head, or if she were to write a totally different kind of book, I would be the first person there to read that book. I want to read that different book. I just don't want to read any more of these books. They're great. If you haven't read them, give a couple of them a try. But if you've read 1 or 2, you've read them all. So that's why Fiona Davis is sort of on this list. So I have 5 authors who are really on this list. And I'm going to talk about 3 at once, because if I were to split them up, I'd be saying just the same thing 3 times. And those 3 authors are Susan Elizabeth Phillips, Beatrice Williams, and Tracy Chevalier. And this is what I have to say about these authors. As I said, I have read at least 1 book from each of them. These are very talented writers, and they have a lot of fans, and they deserve all the credit for their books. They are good books. They are, however, not books that work for me. There's just something in the language, and it's not bad. I'm not saying that they're bad writers or their prose is lacking or anything like that. I'm just saying that for whatever reason, these authors don't work for me. There are authors, and I've chosen these specific authors because maybe not Susan Elizabeth Phillips, because I don't read very much romance anymore, but there was a time when I was reading a lot of romance. But historical fiction, I read a lot of historical fiction, so these are authors who should probably be in my wheelhouse, and they just aren't. And it's nobody's fault. It just is what it is, that these are authors who just don't work for me. And if they work for you, that's wonderful. And I hope you get all the enjoyment out of them. And I wish them all the professional success in the world, because they are great authors. They work hard. Their books are quality. They just aren't for me. So now we're getting to the other 2. And this is going to get a little spicy. I'm going to say now, I recognize the fact that by the end of this video, I will probably have fewer followers than I had when I started. But my first author on this list is Bryn Greenwood. Bryn Greenwood, that's her name. Bryn Greenwood. I have read 1 of her books. It was for a book club, which is important because I would not have finished this book otherwise. And that book was All the Ugly and Wonderful Things. This book is about romanticizing pedophilia. Yeah, that's no go with me. And that's a line that if, you know, romanticizing or justifying or glamorizing sexual abuse or sexual assault or pedophilia, anything in there, that's a line that is too far for me. And in this book, Bryn Greenwood like jumped over that line and then did the hokey pokey on the other side of it. You know, as I said, it was for a book club. So I was looking forward to going to this book club and just letting people know my issues about it, because I really thought everyone would agree with me. But there was a spectrum. And I was on one end of the spectrum with a friend of mine who is a lawyer, who will come up in the story for the next author. And there were people who kind of were at different points on the spectrum, but I'm not a black and white person. I can definitely see shades of gray and see how some things are different in different situations, but not this. This is bad. And at the time, after I finished the book, I had said, you know, despite the content of this book, Bryn Greenwood is a very talented author. Her prose is beautiful. I would read more from her. I don't stand by that anymore, because I have seen interviews where she's called a bit to task over the content of this book. And I don't think she recognizes what was problematic about it. And that to me is just not something I want to continue with. So no more Bryn Greenwood for me. Deep breath. Because I'm about to get spicy here. And I know people are just going to like unsubscribe from me, but here we go. The number one author on my list of authors who I will not read, or have read, number one author is Jodi Picoult. Or Picoult. I don't know how you pronounce her name, and I honestly don't care. I have read 2 of her books, both of which were for book clubs, but different book clubs. So the first one I read was My Sister's Keeper. And I read this, I don't know, shortly. I don't think it had come out in paperback yet, so it was probably within a year of publication. This book it's a really bad Lifetime movie. It is just not good. I'm not going to go into what the book is about, because it's been around. You probably already know what it's about, but if you don't, if I were to give you a summary of the book, you would know how it ends. I mean, the ending is so obvious. When it was suggested to me, the person who suggested said, no one will see the twist that comes at the end. So I saw the twist in the first page, but to be fair, had this person not said that, I probably would have seen the twist on the second page. It is glaringly obvious, and it is horribly emotionally manipulative. Now, I fall victim to emotionally manipulative books all the time, and then I cry, and then I get mad that I cried because I knew that they emotionally manipulated them. In this one, I didn't even cry. I was like insulted that they thought that Jodi Picoult, or whatever her name is, thought she could emotionally manipulate me with this. This was just no good. And it was not well written. See, and I think that's like a big difference between, one of the big differences between Bryn Greenwood and Jodi Picoult. At least with Bryn Greenwood, I think she's a very talented writer. I don't actually think Jodi Picoult is a very talented writer. Of the 2 books I've read, neither one would be, content aside, neither one would be what I would consider a well-written book. But this one was just dumb. I mean, it was like predictable, and yeah, I was like, this is why am I reading this, other than it was for a book club. I do know that a movie has been made about this book, and there was a bit of an outrage because I guess the ending had been changed. I don't know if that made the story any better, but I do know it couldn't have made it any worse, because it's not good. But yeah, so that was my first experience with Jodi Picoult. And honestly, she would have been on my do not read list then, except in another book club, she came up again, and here I need to calm myself down. So in this particular book club, which was the same book club that did the Bryn Greenwood book, someone suggested Small Great Things by Jodi Picoult. Now, I tried to dissuade them from this book because it's Jodi Picoult, but you know, whatever. They chose to do it, and I'm like, I was going to go in with it with an open mind. I went to Goodreads and I kind of scanned through, and it has a really high rating, and a lot of people that I follow gave it a really high 4 or 5 stars. So I'm like, you know, maybe My Sister's Keeper was just not, it was a one-off. It just, you know, maybe I should give Jodi Picoult another try. So I read this book. This book, oh man, this book made my blood burn with the heat of 1,000 supernovas. I just despised this book. Now there's a couple reasons why this book is, this book made me mad. The first one, I'm not going to talk, it's the big obvious one, and I'm not going to talk a lot about it because I don't feel that I have the authority to talk that much about it, because I, like Jodi Picoult, am a white woman. This book, I think Jodi Picoult tried so hard to be anti-racist that she ended up being hella racist. This book is offensive. And it is, I'm sorry, it's racist. There's no way around that. Again, I won't go into great detail, but I am going to link below a video from Brown Girl Reading. I actually found that creator through this video where she reviews it, and she can speak to that. And what she says is right on. And I think that her words, her thoughts on this book need to be heard. But the basic issue of this is, it sounds like to me, Jodi Picoult is saying, Black people, don't worry about racism because your white savior will come. So there's that. And I'm not trying to minimize the racist portion of it, but I also don't feel like I'm the one who should be talking about it. So please do go check out Brown Girl Reading's video. And you can also, I'm going to tell a little book club story in the course of this. You can kind of read the end of that book club story if you go down in the comments, because I wrote a very long comment. The other issue, besides it being badly written, it has both a legal element and a medical element. And I have had two friends in that book club. We weren't friends from the book club. They are friends of mine. They're very close friends, and we all came together to go to this book club. And one, as I mentioned, was a lawyer, and one is a doctor. I am neither a doctor nor a lawyer, and I don't have anything beyond maybe an educated layperson's knowledge of either of those fields. But I'm reading what's going on in this book, and none of it sounds right to me. So I asked my friend, who is a doctor, I said, you know, what are you thinking about this book? And she went off on one of the most hilarious rants I've ever heard about her, about how horribly wrong this book depicts the medical field, how nothing on the medical portion of this book could ever really happen, that this is completely wrong. If Jodi Picoult ever consulted an actual medical professional about this book, that medical professional should lose their license. Just went on and on and on. She said, it's worse than Grey's Anatomy. That should tell you that. And by the way, if you think that Grey's Anatomy is an accurate representation of life working in the medical field, you're wrong. It isn't. But she just went off on it. I'm like, okay. So then I asked my friend, who's the lawyer, about the legal side of things, because things didn't seem right. And her response was a train of profanity that I am still in awe of. And I'm not going to repeat because I'd like my videos to stay on YouTube. The gist of it was the existence of this book is an insult to law. Yes. There is a part, in fact, it was a part of the law feature of this book that made me finally throw this book across the room, literally. I mean, I picked it up and chucked it. And I'm going to give a spoiler here, so spoiler starts here. I'll keep spoiler on the bottom until I'm done talking about it. The court case in this book is one when the lawyer realizes that if she turned a piece of paper over, there was something written on the other side of it. That is the big key to this entire story, at least the legal part of it. And that is so incredibly stupid. Okay, spoiler over. If you're back, what I said doesn't change my feelings about it. It was just an example. But this book was just, I feel myself like burning just thinking about it. So anyway, it was a book club discussion. And my friend, the lawyer, said, I'm not going. She's like, I can't go and not be, you know, not clean my language up and not get absolutely furious about it. I am not going to this book club, which is fine. I understand that. My friend who's a doctor and myself, we decided we were going to go. And we were very nervous about it because our feelings about this book are so strong. We came up with a plan, and I think this is a good plan if you ever find yourself in a situation like this, where you're going into a book club that you think may be very combative and, you know, lots of high tempers, things like that. We, our book club met at a little like coffee shop. We decided to meet early and go to the Mexican restaurant across the street from the coffee shop and down some margaritas, so that when we got to book club, we were 3 sheets to the wind. Yeah, we were drunk. Which I actually, it was great. It worked out well. It wasn't necessarily needed because the people who happened to attend that book club meeting, not everybody in the book club, but the people who attended the book club meeting all felt the same way about the book that we did. But it made the discussion a lot more fun. So yes, there you go. Jodi Picoult, I will never read. And I do want to say, if you are a Jodi Picoult fan and you've made it this far and you haven't unfollowed me, or you have unfollowed me, but you're still for some reason watching this video, I know that I didn't convince you to think differently about this author. I know that. I didn't do this to convince you differently about this author. I'm just telling you my feelings. But I know that I didn't convince you. But I also want you to know that there is absolutely nothing you can say that is going to change my mind about Jodi Picoult. Nothing. This is set. So I would very much like, especially if there's other things we have in common, that you stayed around and watched my videos. And I think we will just take Jodi Picoult and put her in the same box that I put that thing that I cannot talk to many members of my family about. Put her in the box of politics, and it's just, we won't ever talk about it. I promise you, I'm gonna make you this promise. I will never mention Jodi Picoult on this channel again. There you go. So if you are very offended about what I said about this author, but you're open to staying with me, just know that I won't ever say it again. Okay? Anyway, there you go. I went negative. I'm not saying I won't go negative again in the future, but I don't have any immediate plans to do it. I don't particularly like going negative, but I kind of wanted to get that off my chest. So anyway, if you're still with me, maybe if you agree with me about some of these authors, you like this video, please, or follow me. Or if you stay to the end of the video or look down in the comment box below, you can see all the places you can find me on social media. And I promise I don't go off on rants like this all the time. Thank you so much, and I hope I'll see you in the next video. Bye.